Okay, so the recording is on, and I'm going to share my screen. Wait, let's see, let's close this. Share my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen with the agenda?
Yes.
Okay, so the meeting is called to order at, what time is it? I have 7:07. The meeting is called to order at 7:07. Good evening, all. My name is Denise Bond. I'm the chairperson for the Parks Committee. And here is the agenda. I just want to acknowledge Theodore James. He is a committee member, Dr. Michael Burke, who is the chair for Community Board 12, and a few other of the committee members who are not here in attendance at the moment. But this is tonight's agenda. Let's just establish some norms and conduct for the meeting. So please just make sure that we are respectful to each other and try not to talk over anyone. If you have a comment or something you would like to say, if you know how to use the features in WebEx, then please go ahead and raise your hand so that you can be called upon to share out. All right. The two new committee members that are non-voting members, Ms. Pabon and Mr. Toba, are not here, so I'm going to skip that on the agenda and go right into, I am very pleased to have here from the New Yorkers for Parks, Jessica Sabb, and she has a presentation for us. So one of the reasons, and just a little preliminary information as to why I wanted to contact the New Yorkers for Parks. They do a lot of research, and I think that if we want to ask for things within our community in terms of green spaces, additional park areas, that type of thing, it's always good to have the data to back up what it is that we're asking for. And so that is the purpose of having the New Yorkers for Parks here, and that we can establish a relationship with them and hopefully make our community just that much better. So with that being said, Ms. Sapp, please take it away. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I don't think that we both can share at the same time. So I'm going to stop sharing, and it's all yours.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much for the invitation. My name is Jessica Sabb. I'm the Advocacy and Communications Project Manager at New Yorkers for Parks. And I'm gonna see, let's see. Okay, hopefully you can all see the presentation now on the screen.
Yes.
All right,
Yes,
great.
we can.
So we really appreciate the invitation from Bronx Community Board 12. We recently released some new research that categorizes open space and parks across all community boards. So we're hoping to do different rounds of presentations like these to different community boards. And you're actually the first ones who invited us. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I will move along. In case you're not familiar with our organization, we are New Yorkers for Parks, the only independent citywide organization that advocates for quality parks and open spaces for all New Yorkers. This organization was established over 100 years ago. And the way we work is we have partnerships with grassroots groups, with parks conservancies, with city agencies, with private companies. We do advocacy on behalf of the Parks Department and on behalf of grassroots groups. And then we also conduct research on parks and open spaces. And so these three buckets of activity all feed into each other, and that's our constant loop. So we've had a long-term relationship with the Bronx. For many years, we've collaborated with different parks and open space groups, the Bronx Coalition for Parks and Green Spaces, the Bronx Parks Speak Up, which is where we did a presentation where Ms. Denise Bond saw us, Loving the Bronx, Bronx River Alliance, South Bronx Unite, Friends of Pelham Parkway, and I'm sure there are many more that some of my other colleagues could probably speak deeper to. I've been with the organization since 2018, so I'm not the oldest member we have, but these are some of the groups that I've been able to interact with. And this photo is from one of our distributions of daffodil bulbs in the Bronx. That's one of our young volunteers. And so to explain a bit more about the Daffodil Project, this is a citywide living memorial to the victims of 9/11. And daffodils are actually in bloom right now. What our organization does is distribute free daffodil bulbs to a bunch of different community groups, and then those community groups plant them in any public space in all of the city. So on the screen, you can see a map, and hopefully it's in high enough resolution. There's a bunch of little dots all over that just show where daffodils have been planted. And so this is truly one of the longest running programs we have, and we are honoring the 20th year this year. And of course, in light of COVID, it's all the more, I guess, solemn this year. But registration for bulbs opens in fall, so we invite all of you to participate in that if you're interested. I can also circulate a version of this presentation after this meeting ends. So to move on to the data we have, and also I just want to say at the end, feel free to ask questions or to jump in, however feels comfortable for everybody. Our newest 2021 open space profiles is what we just released 2 weeks ago. This is a collection of essential open space data for neighborhood advocates to use in their work. And so there's one for every single community district across NYC, all 59. And this is an effort that we do every 5 years, about every 5 years. It's our one citywide research project. So we're really happy to get them out this year. And they're available in English and Spanish for every district across New York. So Bronx Community Board 12. This is what the first half of the sheet looks like. All of these are front and back sheets, one with a map on one side and the back with all the stats. So on this front side, you can see what the legend is indicating. And if I move to this next one, it's slightly more zoomed in. And here we also list all of the different open spaces in the district. And we also list the ones that are outside of the district, like Grand Cortlandt Park, Bronx Park, even I guess part of Bronx Park is within, as well as Bay Park. So some of the main stats. So this is a screenshot of the back side of this sheet. And so this is where all of the stats are aggregated. We had a research team of 4 different people who worked on this over the last 2 years. And basically, it's just stats that talk about parkland, access to parkland, all of the different amenities and infrastructure within parks across the district, things like community gardens, rec centers, playgrounds, stewardship information, how many 311 calls per 1,000 residents are related to parks, as well as park volunteer groups. And then we also have a lot of information on demographics. And what is new in this latest iteration of our open space is the health, is focused on health data in the bottom right corner. So we have information on asthma, obesity, life expectancy, diabetes, air pollution, and hospitals and clinics. So Bronx Community Board 12 actually ranks 16 of 59 for total parkland within the district. But then you see a different story when you take a look at the residents within a 5-minute walk of a park, because Bronx Community Board 12 is 51 of 59. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that discrepancy is accounted for. And then one of the other big items is that it's 10 out of 59 for total tree canopy coverage. So that's generally seen as a more positive thing, as it contributes to cooling and just having larger canopy of tree covering your district is beneficial in different ways. So 10 of 59 is up there. So on this next sheet, I just pulled out some of the insights from this data. And so to talk about that discrepancy between parkland, but then also the 5-minute walk, the way that the parkland was calculated is that across all of New York City, there are the 59 community board districts, but the largest parks in New York are not within any one district. So every district that is adjacent to a large park gets a portion of that park's acreage apportioned to it. So technically, it seems like Community Board 12 has a lot of parkland around it, but within it, it actually has quite few parks, and they're few and far between. So that explains why more than half of residents lack a park within a 5-minute walk. Now, 5 minutes might seem a bit extreme. Some of our colleagues in the open space realm look at a 10-minute walking border, and that's what they count as good access. But from our experience speaking with community groups and grassroots groups, a 10-minute walk is still rather onerous for a lot of people, especially depending on different abilities and ages. So we really look at the 5-minute walk, and we think that every New Yorker should have a quality open space within a 5-minute walk. So other call outs is that demographics, this is a majority Black district. The population skews young. There are more young people in general over the city average, and also less seniors over 65 compared to the city average. And there are also only 5 stewardship groups that we're aware of through partners data. And this is probably due to a lack of parks, because if there aren't parks, then how are groups going to form around parks to take care of them? So that's how we attribute that. And then finally, with health, there are higher asthma rates than average, as is the case in much of the Bronx. There are, on average, 369 incidences per 10,000 children, incidences of asthma attacks or asthma hospitalizations. And then, like the rest of the Bronx, there are higher than average obesity and diabetes rates. So, of course, we can't necessarily say that that's immediately attributed to the lack of parks, but we do think it's one of the points that advocates can use to point why parks are necessary and why there should be a concerted effort to develop more of them in the district. So we move along to the next slide, how to use this data. So in a very simplified way, what we recommend is that organizations create a coalition, starting with established groups that already exist and that take care of park spaces or that already engage with these topics, starting with them and growing. And then advocating to different civic leaders, whether those are elected leaders, business leaders, community leaders, starting to build momentum around an idea. Oh, and actually, I'm just realizing that there was a first point here that got deleted off my slide, which was to start with a goal. Like, what is the actual goal? Create that outline of, are you looking to develop more parkland? What is the main purpose for creating a coalition and then advocating? So apologies for that misstep there. And then finally, we recommend that groups join us in our citywide advocacy for parks. We have a petition going right now, which we call the Play Fair for Parks petition, which is to restore parks funds. The Parks Department was cut 14% last year. Of course, this was due to COVID budget shortfalls, but we do think that that budget should be restored as soon as possible, since parks have turned out to be the place that most people are flocking to and that's safest to be with our loved ones and meet up with people at a safe distance. So we think that that budget should be restored immediately. And then finally, we also recently released the 5-point plan for park equity, which is our platform for the current different races that are happening, the mayoral race, and all of the different city council races. So these, that's our election platform. And then to go into a little bit more depth for both of them, there's a, if you want to sign the petition, you can scan this now, go to the website where we have it. And by signing the petition, you send a letter to your local council member as well as the mayor. So it's a really effective way of getting a message directly to your representatives. And almost 1,200 people have already signed on. We'd like to see that number a lot higher because of all the people who use parks. We think that many people would agree that our parks need this funding. So that's a petition. And then here is just a quick breakdown of the 5-point plan for park equity. The first point is all about having a comprehensive parks and open space plan that agencies across the city can coordinate each other to achieve. The second point is doubling down on the park's budget. We want the city to commit to at least 1% of the budget going to parks. Currently, it's hovered over 0.5% for a few decades now. So we think we should double that and have enough funds to actually tackle all the different issues we see in our parks. Build more parks and open space. This could speak very directly to what we see in Community Board 12. When Ms. Bond had reached out, she had mentioned that there's a lot of development happening, but little consideration of parks and open spaces. So that's exactly what we are talking directly to in this point. Fixing the capital process. The capital process is very onerous for improvements in parks. We think that needs to be expedited. And lastly, empowering our communities. The Parks Department relies on a lot of volunteer labor to take care of parks. And then parks are also the centers of our communities. So there's a mismatch there of what resources should be spent towards helping volunteers. And we think that the Parks Department should be fully funded so that parks workers can actually do maintenance work and volunteers can focus on addressing other social and cultural issues that they want to. You can get the full details on our website. And then we do have a couple of additional resources that help with advocacy. We have this guide, How Can I Improve My Park, which outlines very extensively all of the different steps that a community group should go through in order to create either a capital improvement or see a maintenance change in their park. We also have these different reports, which are different from our open space profiles. These ones are much more in-depth. They measure different things about maintenance, access, variety, sustainability, and they feature like in-depth interviews with people from the community. A lot of like active feedback went into creating these. So they're for different neighborhoods in the Bronx, but it can be a good resource to take a look at. And finally, we also have this list of other data sources, which we recommend using for advocacy. The Department of City Planning has multiple resources available. The Department of Health does as well. Some other research organizations have a lot of interesting data that they also organize either by community board district or city council district. And all of these used in tandem, we believe, can create a very compelling case to elected leaders or anybody else that your community group might be trying to convince. And so finally, I invite you to sign up for our emails. If you would like to join our advocacy, you can use this link. It's also on our website, pretty easy to find to get our email newsletters. And we're also having a mayoral candidate forum on Monday, April 19th, so next week. We invite you all to join. We haven't heard much from candidates on what they're thinking about for parks and open space, so we really want to put that on the map for them, and we invite you all to join. It's of course free to attend, and it's sponsored by us, the Playfair Coalition, which is a group or a coalition of 300 plus groups and organizations that have all signed on to this platform, and it'll be presented by the New York Law School. So thank you so much for your attention. I welcome any questions. This is also my contact information. Feel free to email me, and also feel free to follow the organization on social media. I think I'll stop sharing. Let's see. Okay, there we go.
Well, I would like to thank you, Ms. Sapp, for that presentation. I feel like that was very enlightening. Thank you so much. I have a few questions, but before I start asking my 1,000,001 questions, is there anyone else that has any questions for Ms. Sapp? And once again, thank you so much for sharing with us.
For sure. I see
Hi,
some
Ms.
raised hands. Yes.
Yeah, there's a raised hand. I didn't even, oh yes, Dr. Burke. Go ahead, Dr. Burke.
Well, I'm gonna have Mr. James go first, Mrs. Bond, and then I'll ask my questions.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. James. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Hi, Ms. Saabs. You spoke about the stewardship groups. Can you tell us a little bit more about those groups, and if one want to get involved in one, can you tell us a little about maybe how we can get started?
Sure thing. So we calculated that number using data from Partnerships for Parks, which is part of the City Parks Foundation. They work really closely with grassroots groups. And I actually have the email here. The different groups that they had listed is the Seton Falls Park Preservation Coalition, the Friends of Wakefield Playground, and then there's 3 school groups, PS68, PS723X, and the PS68X Garden of Unity. So
Oh.
those are the 5 groups that we identified with our partners' data.
Okay. And Ms. Patterson is on here from the Seton Falls Park Coalition as well.
Oh, great.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Do you have any more questions, Mr. James?
No, that's
Okay.
I'm good with that right now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Dr. Burke? You need to unmute, Dr. Burke. We can't.
Yeah, we do this every single time. All right, thank you, Mrs. Bond. So, Mrs. Saab, excellent presentation. First of all, I have a potential group that's here right now. I see Mr. Williams here and Mr. Plasser is here. So, you may have another group to work with. There's something that you said that caught my attention, and I want to make certain that the numbers are correct. Now, Matt Doron normally is here, and I guess I don't know if that's him at the 347 number or not, but
I'm not. I don't think so. Go ahead.
no, okay. But normally, I used to serve at one point on this very committee, and from what I can understand, New York City already allots 1% of the total budget, which of course is minuscule, but 1% for every dollar to go in the parks. So I think you stated it was about 0.5%. So can you tell me when those numbers? Well, let me ask a better question. Instead of asking for 1%, because I already believe it's at 1%, why not ask for 2.5%?
Right.
I think you either go big or go home. I mean, obviously you're not going to get 10%, but if you would even get 2.5% of every dollar, you're talking about increasing the revenue by 150% just right then and there. So why not ask for that?
Right. Thank you so much for that. I think what I should have qualified my statement with is that 0.5% figure is for maintenance and operations. So there is a different fund for capital investments, and I think that will push it above the 1%. But what we're generally focused on is that maintenance and operations piece, since that's going to actually move things forward. And the capital one, I believe, can fluctuate from year to year. So you're absolutely correct. And we're asking for that 1% to be for maintenance and operations solely. It's definitely true. We have heard that from different partners that we should go big or go home. I think the strategic choice behind that was based on what we've heard from our colleagues at the Parks Department, where they feel like certain staff people have told us that having that giant of an influx of funds would actually be difficult and almost impossible for them to spend within that first year of receiving it. We definitely will be pushing towards more, and perhaps it's not the best to start small and then settle for less eventually. But I think we also just liked the roundness of the 1%. But I'll be bringing that back to my team and seeing if we can push further on it.
Again, my philosophy is go big or go home. If you want 1%, ask for 3, and if they come back with 2, then of course you got more than what you already wanted. But that's just that's how I go. But there's something else that you said that caught my attention, which as far as capital improvement. Now, did I hear you say that your group can actually assist with capital improvement? Did I hear that correctly? Because I didn't see your slides number to the very end, so I can't refer you to a slide number. So I need a little more detail on that.
So we don't offer any help currently on capital projects. In the past, we have helped groups either design their projects or do different things like that. At the moment, we don't have that capacity, but we do have resources that explain step by step how groups can put a coalition, come up with an idea, and advocate successfully for a capital improvement in their park. And whether that's using like city council member funds, participatory budgeting, we list out like some of the different processes that groups can go through in order to fully fund a capital project.
Well, let me just say this, because you've got Mr. Williams' group and Mr. Placer, which is here, that hell, they can probably use your resources. So if I were you, I would, reach out to them in the chat while they're here, because, I'm sure that's why, they're here to tell us about what they're trying to do to make our parks a much better place. And so you have 2 people right here that's willing to do this. So my suggestion is, make certain that you stay for their presentation and go from there. Would it be helpful for your group to get a letter of support from the Parks Committee? How could Mrs. Bond's committee, because I see a number of her members here, and how could we at Community Board 12, how could we be of assistance to you?
Great, thank you for asking. I think as much as we can push the current petition, that's kind of our current advocacy ask right now of different groups. And a lot of community boards have either an email list that goes out or a printed flyer that goes to different homes. So whichever way you're contacting constituents in your area, if you would like to help push that current petition to restore Parks's budget, then we would appreciate that. And then also,
that's another question. So do you think that includes going to the electeds? I mean, because we have one elected in CB, and in actually we have 2 electeds. One, I think an election was just called, if I'm not mistaken. So the first thing that we can do is, craft a letter of support if that's what's needed. My question to you is, if we're pushing a petition, we can do that. But I'm thinking that for parks, we need a multi-pronged strategy, especially since we're only at, between 0.5 and 1%. So my question to you is, would you want Mrs. Bond to recommend a letter of support or to reach out to our electeds? I mean, would that be a feasible strategy?
That's definitely.
Let me just comment on that, by the way, too, because our first vice chair, of course, is she helps do that. That's, like I said, I love Jerry because that's what she does. Between her and Mrs. Bond, I'm certain that could happen. And so my question to you is, would that help advocate for you and for us so that you could A, get the monies that you need, and B, we can beautify our parks?
Right, yes. And that's definitely a very effective tactic. We recommend that if you can reach out to your council member, do so, and especially pressure that council member to talk to their colleagues who are on the budget negotiating team, which is a select few of the council members, and they're the ones who are really doing the negotiating on the budget and getting back to the mayor on what funding priorities they have. This is the month to be having those meetings, and then in May, things are really going to pick up with different hearings happening. So if possible, I think that's a great strategy to send a joint letter to your local council member or to any other elected official for the budget.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Thank you as well.
Can I just chime in a little bit? Because
Go
what
ahead.
keeps going through my head is, the one aspect about the importance of parks and greenery in our neighborhoods is the impact on mental health. And as we say in many of our trainings, which we emphasize, that just a walk in the park, you know, a walk around greenery, a walk around, you know, something in nature, 20 minutes a day, you know, is going to decrease anxiety and depression, you know. And the parks, it also absorbs the 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 elements that causes so much asthma in our community,
Mm.
you know. So it is important, you know, kind of like adding that aspect into, you know, that appeal. Like, this is not parks just for recreation.
Exactly.
Recreation in itself is just not it. But the importance, I mean, when you look at the Friends of Central Park, you know, look at how much emphasis they go into, you know, maintaining those areas. And we want the same thing in our neighborhoods, you know, and we do need the same things in our neighborhoods. And we have a good beginning because we do have so much park area in this neighborhood, you know. So I just wanted to kind of add that aspect, you know, to the logic in terms of presenting to elected officials. You know, recreation is important because, I mean, I do the trainings all the time. And what I hear is that, you know, people need to have recreation. They need to have a space where they could go to sit, just to absorb, for nothing else, you know. It is so important right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing up that point. It's definitely very true and something that we should probably hit on more in our own messaging. What's nice about our petition platform is while it's a letter, there's also a customizable portion. And it's been really nice to see some of the responses of folks who have submitted the petition. Many people have hit on that note exactly about how parks have been their salvation during this time of isolation, that for this reason, it's just all the more essential to fund them properly and make that care actually be seen and perceived, because of course that also affects your mental health if the park you go to is always dirty, always dilapidated, always in a certain condition. That speaks to your mental health as well.
Right.
Thank you.
And just to, are there any other hands before I move on? Okay. Ms. Patterson, you wanted to say something? No? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Patterson.
Hi, Ms. Saab. Nice to meet you. I haven't met you before. Please say hello to Emily and Gabrielle. I wanted to ask you, we testified at the City Council Falls Park Coalition about 3 years ago in reference to Seton Falls Park, which is a joint school park. And we haven't heard anything back from that as to what would be the these joint school parks, because I think the main thing was that in Manhattan they wanted to sell parks that were joint school parks. And I just like to know, what was there any resolution? I mean, and if not, you know, you can always get to me. I'll give you my email address in the chat. Thank you.
Hi. Hello. Great to meet you, and I'll definitely pass your hello on to Gabby and Emily. I'm actually not sure. I remember hearing about that when I first came on to New Yorkers for Parks, the jointly operated playgrounds. There was a lot of discussion happening at the time in the city. I'm not too sure what the resolution ended up being. Using spaces creatively like that is something that we've considered as part of our 5-point plan for park equity, because on the third point of expanding access, there's one point which we go into more detail on our website, but it's about the fact that, like, we know that not every district can have brand new large parks created in it, but there are creative proposals to use temporary spaces or to share spaces with other built structures in order to expand access to playgrounds. And I know that our colleagues, the Trust for Public Land, they've also done a lot of work on this topic, and they've renovated playgrounds with the idea that they'd be open to the public as well. So I'm not exactly sure, but I would love to follow up via email once I maybe ask Emily or somebody who has more knowledge on the topic.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Because I'm going to get my few questions out.
Yes, I do have my hands up. I don't know if you
Oh,
see
I
that.
didn't see you. Is this, oh, Mr. Toba, go ahead, Mr. LaCrown, sorry.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you. I kind of entered late because I was leaving a meeting to come in. So I want to suggest if you can make this slide available to us after this meeting so that some of us can have it. That is my first request. The second thing is that I heard you talk about PS68. I didn't know what you said about it. Can you please repeat that? I'm the PTA president for PX68. So what did you say about that school and the parks or the playground there?
Yes, thank you for asking. Let's see. So PS68, they are listed from on a data set we received from partners at Partnerships for Parks that says that there's an active parks group for that school. So not sure if maybe you can confirm or deny that existence, but based on their records, there is a group there that stewards that space.
I'll follow up with it tomorrow. We're having our meeting, so I'll ask from the principal or maybe the administrator there. So if there's anything whatsoever, I have your email, so I'll be able to get back to you. Thank you very much.
Great, yes, and I'll definitely send a PDF version of this presentation to Mrs. Bond, and hopefully along with other links and different things that I might have to answer.
Right. So the other thing that Mr. LaCrown that you will see is that because we're recording the meeting, it will also be on the community board's web channel on YouTube, so that this way that you can access the presentation that way as well. But definitely, Ms. Ab, if you can send that to me, that would be greatly appreciated as well. I have one of the things that I think I would like to see. I think that in our community board, we have a lot of construction going on and a lot of apartment buildings going up, but we do not have the green space. And in particular, I point back to your data where you say that the idea of having the park space, if we have the park space that surrounds our community, but not our community board, but not necessarily within our district. So that to me is all the more reason why we should have perhaps more community gardens going up, or a new park. Why not? As Dr. Burke said, go big or go home. Why not a new park? Why not? We are deserving of that. So those are things that I think would be, as you mentioned about forming this idea of a coalition, but I think that that's one of the things. Some new park and new green spaces is something that I think we should aim for, in my opinion. So that was just one comment. And then also, I noted in your presentation that you said that there was some in-depth research, and I wanted to know, I noticed that some of the park areas focused on the South Bronx, but do you have anything that also specifically in that in-depth research that focuses in particular on parks within our community board?
So one of those open space index reports, not one of those, because we've only done 10 of them and
Okay.
they're like throughout different areas. We
Okay.
do have an older research like project that we used to do, which we called the report cards. And that was our version of an independent analysis on cleanliness and conditions across New York City parks. And that one was very extensive. I believe like the last ones we did was in 2014, around then. But there we did cover a lot more ground in New York City. And while it's not in depth looking at a whole neighborhood and how that neighborhood has open space, it was looking at specific parks. And I'm sure that there are probably some parks that fall within your district that were outlined in those independent analyses. I don't know exactly in which editions or in which versions, but I can take a look and try to get back to you on that.
All right, fair enough. Thank you so much. And then one other question, the daffodil bulbs, is that something that we can still gain access to for planting for this season, or we have to wait till next year?
Yes, so we just have to wait until the end of the summer. Registration for bulbs open in August, and then they'll actually be distributed in September, and then they should be planted in October/November, and then they're basically the first ones to bloom at the start of spring. So that's actually currently happening. Maybe you've seen some daffodils.
Yes, actually right out my front door, as a matter of fact.
Great.
Yes. All right. So once again, I want to thank you so much for your presentation. Is there anyone with any other questions for Ms. Sapp? Okay. All right. So all hearts and minds are content on that, and we are going to move along in our agenda. Ms. Sapp, I definitely would like to keep in touch with you, and we do have Mr. Williams and Mr. Placer who are trying to develop their RC activities in Shoelace Park. So if you have the opportunity to stay for that, please do.
Okay, I'll definitely stay for that. And thank you all so much for your attention, your questions. I'll drop my email again in the chat, and then as well as sending the presentation around. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Okay, let me share my screen. Hold on. Okay. All right, so we did get to, okay. Next up, we have the radio control car group, actually. Mr. Doron, I'm not sure if he's on the phone, but I did not see him, so I'm not sure. But we're up to point number 5, radio control car group. I am going to, do you need to share the screen, or you're just going to speak to what's going on right now?
I'll just speak, if it's on me, I'll just speak to what's going on.
Okay, perfect.
You know, at the last meeting, you know, we were asked to come up with some stuff, send some documents. So we sent the documents over, and we're just waiting for Mr. Duran to reply. I haven't gotten a reply back from Mr. Duran.
Right.
It's asked for a status, and I still haven't heard back. And I just didn't want to overstep and go into the park and put down any pipe or anything, because as I stated last time, we got pipe to, you know, just to help make the track look a little more appealing. But I don't want to overstep and go and adding anything and then, you know, get in any trouble. So at this point, we're kind of at a stall, and I know Mr. Doran said he wanted to get started before the growing season, and now growing season is upon us, and it'll be a little harder to get started with growth. But I know we did have a few guys. It's a lot of enthusiasm in the community. Some guys have gone and they've even painted, you know, the driver's stand to make it look a little better down at the park, and you know, they're out there using it. But I don't know, Miss Bond, do you think it's okay if we went down and just put down pipe to outline the track so we can get going?
Right. I do. I was hoping that Mr. Duran would be here. Usually he's here, and I see 2 people on the phones, but I do not think that Mr. Duran is here this evening. So what I'm going to do is that I will contact him, and then I will call you back and let you know exactly. I will call him and I will email him myself. And if I cannot get in touch with him, then I will also try his supervisor to see if we can get some movement, because it is something that needs to be addressed in a timely fashion. That is the best suggestion. And if anyone else has any other suggestions as to what can be done, please don't hesitate to share. I'm sharing my screen, so if I don't see your hand, I'm going to ask Egeria, if you see a hand, to please.
Ms. Bond, one additional thing.
Yes, go right ahead.
So in addition to, you know, finding out if we could proceed with, you know, just going and adding the pipe and outlining the track, really most important, I think, is just to find out our status in the application process as a friends group, because, you know, without that status or designation, we really can't really move forward.
Right.
You know,
Everything is at a standstill. Right. I do get that. Everything is at a standstill. And he did promise, he opted to go a different way from what he originally had said, in the interest of saving time. And now here we are at a standstill. This is not saving time. So I totally get it.
Thank you, Ms. Bond.
You're welcome. Anyone else has any suggestions as to how we should proceed on this matter? Okay. All right. Thank you so much for being here, and appreciate your hard work on
I know.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
This is Ms. Patterson.
Go ahead.
Miss Bond, look at the chat, okay?
Okay.
'Cause I
Wait.
know, because it's letting you know why Matt is not here. Look in the chat.
Oh, okay. Wait, let me, I can't. Oh, wait, hold on one second. I'm new to this mode. Okay. Okay.
But he apologizes for not being there.
Oh, he called, okay, he did speak to, okay.
He spoke
Okay.
to somebody, a mutual friend, so he apologizes for not being there. I'll talk to you later about it, but he apologizes for not being there.
Okay. All right. No problem. No problem. Okay. All right. So we'll try to touch base with him and to figure out something so that we can move forward. And hopefully it will not take too long to get a reply back from him. All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Patterson, for that. We'll obviously skip point number 6 and we'll move on to point number 7, which is Carla on the line by any chance? Carla Borshati, are you here? Okay. All right, I don't believe that Carla's here, but just to briefly speak to what's happening there with point number 7, it's an opportunity that we want to be able to publicize exactly the type of work that we are doing within the Parks Committee and to be able to get more community involvement. So having the publications and local publications is always a good route to go. And Ms. Bouchati has some information in that regard. In the interest of time, because we have the presentation, I'm going to push creating a mission statement off to the next meeting, just to move along and be respectful of everyone's time. Ms. Baez, you're on the line, correct?
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Baez? Yes. Ms. Baez is going to handle point number 9 about properly, and a little bit difficult to do without Matt here because then we could get direct input from, but you can definitely let the community be aware of the things that we discussed in reference to point number 9. Please go ahead.
Sorry, before you get to number 9, I have a
Yes.
question on number 8.
Number 8, yes,
Can you say,
the mission statement.
yeah, you said creating a mission statement. Mission statement for what?
Mission statement for the Parks Committee so that we have certain goals and things in mind as to how we're going to proceed. But
Is Parks Committee not a major committee on the community board? I think the
mission statement, I'm sorry, Mr. LeCrown. Go ahead, finish your statement.
Yes, I believe that the direction or the guidelines for the committee to operate is already stated. So that would have been our mission statement. So why are we creating another mission statement again?
Well, just in terms of and you bring up a valid point, yes, but the problem is that the mission statement, when you look on the Community Board 12's website, that's where I saw the mission statement for the Parks Committee. I do not know of another mission statement anyplace else, but that mission statement is incomplete. It's not even written in complete sentences, to be honest. So it does need to be upgraded so that we have a clear vision as to what it is that we're trying to accomplish as a committee.
Okay, if we put it that way, I think that is better. But when you say creating, it makes it as if
and you are absolutely correct. I say creating because the mission statement really that is in play now just doesn't really say anything. Right. So that's why I say creating, but you are correct. It should be revamping. It should be revamping. And I can change that here. So we can say revamping the mission statement. Okay. And you're absolutely correct. All right. And just like I said, because of the presentation and in the interest of time, because we're almost at 8 o'clock already. Ms. Baez, would you like to handle point number 9, please?
Okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Adriana. Hi. I wanted to discuss on how to properly prepare the parks in District Community Board 12 for this spring, summer, and fall season, and just, in continuation throughout the, next years. And the reason is because last year was, a wake-up call of how much parks were an escape, from everyone's home and everything that was going on throughout the pandemic. However, I think many people didn't realize that there was a lot of staff pulled out and resources. And with that is there was an excessive amount of littering in all parks throughout New York City, including Community Board 12. So I wanted to, bring this open here to this meeting to see how we can properly plan to make sure that, things are put into place to educate the public on how to take care of our parks, because we have a lot of nice, beautiful greenery here. And we would need everyone's hands and cooperation and education to make sure that it is a well-respected and comfortable and safe and clean environment to enjoy.
Thank you, Ms. Baez. Ms. Sabb, maybe you in lieu of the fact that we don't have the Parks Department here this evening, but would you have any suggestions for us as to what you think is the best way to go?
I'm so sorry. Could the person please repeat it? I had to step away for a moment.
No problem. Ms. Baez?
Sure. Hi, Jessica. So just to kind of, I guess, briefly go over it, last year was a wake-up call for everyone on how parks were so valuable in escaping from everything that was going on throughout in the pandemic. And unfortunately, it was a beautiful escape.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Please, whoever's calling in on the 91798, can you please mute so that we can hear Ms. Baez?
Oh, Denise, I'm the telephone number ending in 3098.
Oh, okay. I don't know. There was someone else speaking over you. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead now. I'm gonna stop
Okay.
sharing my screen so I can see better who. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So I'm able to sign in on my computer. However, I can't speak, so I'm using my mobile to listen and to talk into the meeting.
I see. Got it.
But okay, so basically, I think a lot of people notice how much parks were an escape to enjoy family time and, community, not even community events, but just an escape from the real world. And unfortunately, there was an excessive amount of illegal dumping, excessive littering, many barbecues and parties that went on, and people would leave all their trash there, expecting someone to just come up with a magic wand and clean up after them. And it was very unfortunate, to go the next morning and you see all of this. So I wanted to know what everyone else has, to input on what we can do to properly educate our public on how to maintain our parks safe and clean for everyone to enjoy, because I think it would be fair that if you want to do a barbecue, it would be nice if you didn't have to clean up after somebody else. You can just set up, have your barbecue, everything is fine. You clean up after you're done and, kind of keep that rhythm, whether it's to introduce a little more signage or volunteers. I'm not sure, but I wanted to know what everyone else thought.
Sure. Thank you so much for restating that, and my apologies for not hearing it the first time around. This is definitely something we hear frequently. And I think in my experience, what I've seen as one of the most effective tactics is having volunteer groups that regularly join together to consistently clean that up. And getting as many children involved as possible is great, because this is one of the first lessons in environmentalism that kids can get, and seeing it so localized as their park, this is trash that ends up in nature and that we must remove this trash and take care of the planet. All of those things trickle down to greater education. And it's definitely something difficult, and you don't want to be crossing a line and you know, bothering others while at the park. But then it's also a reality. Like a lot of people do litter in parks. So there's definitely a balance to be reached. But having volunteer groups who are visibly active and even posting up signage of your own group or something like that, those can be effective strategies. And then, you know, as people see that there's a group that takes care of it, then they'll be more mindful about what they're leaving. If they think it's just like the general sanitation department or parks department, they might not think twice about littering or dumping something illegally in a park. But if they know that they've seen a community group there week after week, then they might decide to actually follow the rules and dispose of their trash properly. Ms.
Thank you, Ms. Ab. I was talking and I was on mute. Thank you so much, Ms. Ab, for that. Ms. Patterson, you had your hands up?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I had my hand up before when Ms. Saab did her presentation. There was a SOPRA survey that they did in Seton Falls Park, specifically to in reference to usage and trash and all the rest of that. I was just wondering if that went citywide so that we all could have that information. I think they did it in 2018 or 2017. My question, you know, previously, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. And I saw that Ms. Blair was asking, she said an increase in garbage cans. They are scarce in the parks. A good example in Pelham Park, a large park with not so many garbage cans. Most people will put things in a garbage can if they see one there. And we have consistently asked for that, just so that you are aware, Ms. Blair. We did ask for that from the Parks Department, and anyone can correct me if they think I'm wrong. And the feedback that we have gotten from the Parks Department is that when you put more garbage cans and plates, it tends to even accumulate more garbage, because then people come and dump more. We've asked for bags even, and sometimes we don't get that. So there seems to be some disparity in terms of what works and what doesn't. So the idea of having a joint event, and maybe this is something the Parks Committee can partner with the Education Committee, or the it's youth and education, I think the committee name is. So we can partner with them and maybe do an outreach to some of the schools in the area, if they could do an event, the local event that would maybe serve as community service for high school students once we get over the pandemic. I don't know if they're going to be so inclined to do it during the pandemic right now, but that would be a way of getting more volunteers in the park and getting more people involved, perhaps. All right.
Denise, can I chime in on what
Go ahead.
your recent comment?
Go ahead.
So in response to Miss Sydney Blair just requested to increase garbage cans and what you just said. So right before the pandemic hit, we requested them for Seton Falls Park, and they were placed there. Then the pandemic did hit, and a lot of illegal dumping occurred. I did a few volunteer cleanups with Ms. Patterson for the Van Cortlandt Park Coalition, and you would be amazed of how much in the things that people go and dump at the park. It would be their personal stuff, recycling, air conditioner, mattresses. So
tires,
you name it. And it's unfortunate because the trash cans were put in place to add if a particular area in the park doesn't have, if it's highly littered and, you know, someone is not going to walk in a particular direction, then they can go ahead and toss their trash right here and then, you know, continue moving forward, not for someone to dump their mattress or anything like that. So then they were pulled back because it's counterproductive. It's not resolving the issue. So I want to know if there's anything else what we can do. We've been putting in the bags, and that somewhat helps, but it's not really like sticking. So if anyone has anything else, you know, to chime in, that would be great to try to implement a different strategy. That strategy hasn't really worked in Seton Falls Park. It might work in another park in our district. And so we have to kind of figure out what may or may not work in our parks and the culture around our parks as well.
Miss Egeria, you wanted to say something as well?
Yeah, I was going to say on the issue over garbage cans and things, it just might be beneficial if we had garbage cans that was put out by the community rather than by parks, is garbage cans that have signage on it saying this was placed here by, I don't know, a youth program, say, for wanting this park to be clean, like a clear signage on this garbage can. But it might be helpful if we have personal, from the community garbage cans. And it could be by different groups. It could be this garbage can is sponsored by this youth community group in the
Kind of like adopt a highway, that idea, like adopt a highway, and then having maybe a school have like get them a garbage can, and then having the students like decorate the garbage can or something, and then put that out. Maybe
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And have it spread out throughout the parks, but it'll have to be coordinated so that everybody is coordinated. And this is the time we're going to launch this. We could even have some kind of advertisement, all the kids, all the children in this neighborhood, from this school, from that school, from this community group, from that community group, have decided they want their parks to be clean, and that because of that, they're going to put these elements in the park, to help clean the parks. It just may give people a little bit more sense of community
and ownership.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's a good idea, I think. I think that's a good idea. Anyone else? Ms. Hudson? Ms. Hudson, would you like to say something?
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Ms. Hudson, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Good evening. I'm with the East 222nd Street Block Association, as well as with the group, the Friends of Shoelace Park. And we have the same problem also with garbage in the park, especially on after weekends, because there's a lot of barbecuing, a lot of picnics, and people have used the park a lot, especially since the pandemic. And it's not just the point of garbage cans. I mean, we do need more garbage cans, but you also need them to be regularly taken up, and the Parks Department to take out that garbage, because we have very few cans. And I noticed that sometimes the garbage is filled up people put stuff in the garbage, the correct things, from the weekend, and that garbage sometimes is not picked up until like a Wednesday or Thursday. I have to call and complain about the garbage. So it doesn't make sense you having cans and they're just overflowing because Parks Department doesn't come and pick up the garbage. That has to be a regular thing on their part also. And also, if I can understand in Seton Falls, maybe you might want the kind of cans that I see on some streets where the hole is smaller, so that it's not something that everyone can put everything in. It would be, I don't know if you see sometimes on Pelham Parkway in certain places, they're big cans, but the actual opening is smaller. And that would make it much more productive for the type of garbage you want. Now, as far as mattresses and whatever, nothing's going to stop that. I mean, you could have 100 cans, smaller or bigger. If people are going to put mattresses and things like that, that's not going to prevent it. But maybe some of the other things they might not be able to put in. But definitely, we need more garbage cans. I mean, in Shoelace Park, people use the garbage cans, but they're overflowing. The garbage is all over the place, and it's not a regular pickup. They should know if by Monday, at least Tuesday, those garbage cans should be picked up by sanitation, and they're not. A lot of times they're not.
Correct. Because I know I live closest to Seton Falls Park, and I know that we have the same issue with the garbage overflowing many times. All right. Anyone else with comments? Dr. Burke?
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Bond. So let me actually address a couple of things that were brought up by Ms. Hudson, as well as our illustrious first vice chair. So I think I was at the borough board meeting, I want to say last month. Yeah, because we're into April now. Last month. So the Parks Department, and I briefly mentioned it in my chairman's report at the last meeting, but I want to say that I know that there's a new initiative being rolled out from the Parks Department as it pertains to trash and garbage pickup. I know that there are new brown cans with orange, what's the word I'm looking for? Orange adornments to them, where that's going to be more pronounced for residents to see. I think obviously it is well documented that yes, there has been a reduction in the budget, so therefore the frequency, as Ms. Hudson alluded to, may not be as prolific. But I think part of the workaround was that they were trying to put out some of the bigger cans, so they were trying to increase capacity so that it can be more ergonomic. I think so I mentioned it ever so briefly in my chairman's report, but if I could refer you to the Bronx Borough Board and the Bronx Service Cabinet for the month of March, I think that entire presentation is there, so you can look at it. And again, and I thought that Ursula sent that out to the entire board. I'm almost certain that she did. So, you could take a look at that. So if you're on her email list, then you should be able to see some of the efforts that Parks is undertaking this year to make the parks a little bit cleaner. So I just want to put that out there. One of the things that I might suggest, and I know that this was done in the past, is that again, this is to Mrs. Saab's presentation earlier, that if we do ask for a letter, some sort of letter to our electeds to ask them to include that maybe even in the discretionary funding, then that may work as well. As it pertains to the first vice chair's idea, I mean, I think that's a idea that is okay. Ms. Small, can you please? Thank you. I think that is a fantastic idea. I don't know if those programs exist already, but if they don't, then that's something that maybe we can. Something I had an idea as far as getting with the not-for-profit committee, because that's a good way for them to utilize the resources that Miss Coronel is trying to put together. And that may be something to put on her radar for, I think, because they're doing a community needs statement as we speak. And so I think that may be something that Mrs. Bond, you and with this, as far as the first vice chair's idea, that may work as well. So, and I don't know if the statement has gone out or not yet, but if it hasn't, then maybe she can include that question for in the not-for-profit committee. So that's just try to put a bow around some things that were mentioned by Ms. Hudson and Ms. Bennett. So again, thank you for letting me speak.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaCrown, you mentioned that you are the PA president for PS 68. Do you happen to know if the school has anything like that in place, where the children do like community service in the parks or anything like that?
I think since the pandemic,
They haven't.
our ways of doing business has changed, but the concern they have with the playground there is that community we don't have control over when the community use the place. That was the issue we were talking about last time. So our
Oh,
meeting is tomorrow. So I'm going to find out what is the
okay.
arrangement.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And I believe that Ms. Baez has one other point that she wants to make with the information that she received. We reached out for the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance to also speak at this meeting, but they were unable to attend. So Ms. Baez, you want to go over the notes that you had in that phone conversation?
Yes. So I was able to speak with Sarah Kempton from the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance because they had a huge excessive littering issue here at Van Cortlandt Park, starting on Broadway, and I think it's 24242 42nd Street all the way up to 252nd Street, where the Tortoise and Hare track park is. So they were limited with staff, and then they finally were able to, well, they were implementing different strategies, and something stuck, excuse me. They were able to come up with these huge banners and place maybe 4 or 5 bins together with the banner on top saying, put trash here. So that way, anyone who's walking, they can see that, you know, you can place your trash there from a quarter of a mile away. And it's not just one, it's about 4 of them, even if they're having any physical activities here with kids or the sports tournaments. It's very visible and accessible. I asked her what other strategies or what else has been going on to kind of keep the flow of the community and the public who are using the park, you know, understanding how to keep the park safe and clean. She mentioned that right now, and I think this is what Dr. Burke was speaking on, is that the Parks Department is working on a trash campaign. They also are working on a stewardship program and park ambassador programs. They're trying to bring that back. During the pandemic, it was on hold. So now they're in the conversation of bringing it this spring to all NYC parks. And another thing too is that they have a lot of volunteers coming in on the weekends and handing out trash bags to the public, anyone who's using a barbecue or doing a picnic or having a sports event. They received a lot of feedback saying that, you know, sometimes when you're kind and you help out with a resource, you know, it's more people are receptible to it, and then the likelihood of them bringing their own trash or just taking care of the park in general is higher since they implemented that. Instead of hassling or correcting someone, you know, it's better to be, you have a better response with being friendly and just educating in a conversation. But with that, I also wanted to know, aside from just having volunteers with the schools, I wanted to know, because I see that District 12, there's a lot of sororities and fraternities. I see a lot of like driver's license plates, and I wondered if maybe we can do some sorority or fraternity cleanup events, or like possibly like a community event with the sororities and fraternities, and then incorporate like a stroll show. I don't know, just something to give a little more of a livelihood with something that we're trying to educate and solve and move forward.
All right. Thank you so much for that information, Ms. Baez. I saw a hand from Ms. Thayer. Yes, Ms.
Hi.
Thayer, you wanted to say something?
Hi, yes. So I should first introduce myself. I'm Stephanie Thayer, and I'm the Deputy Administrator for Van Cortlandt Park. I work for Parks Department. Ms. Baez, I understand that you spoke to somebody at the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance. I didn't catch who it was that you said you spoke with.
Sarah Kempton.
Sarah, okay, sure. Yes, and obviously Parks Department and the Alliance work together very closely. And it sounds like she was very much up on a lot of things that we're doing. The litter campaign that she talked about is actually being rolled out citywide. So we have these bright orange banners, and then we're grouping garbage cans together, and the bright orange banners say, please put your trash here. Parks Department is also doing an education campaign aggressively. You're going to start seeing you know, at the bus stops where they have advertisements, they're going to put advertisements about please stop littering. They're going to start doing radio announcements. If people get in cabs, they're going to see, you know, how they have the ads that run on those little computer screens in the cabs. You'll see it there. So Parks is trying to first do more about educating the public about putting their trash away. And then they're trying to make these sort of what we're calling trash corrals with the banners just much more visible so that people use them. But I completely agree with whomever it was who said, you know what, the people who throw a mattress into the woods, no matter how much, no matter how big our banners are, they're still going to throw mattresses in the woods, or they dump the old tires in the woods. So, you know, so that does continue to be a problem. I will say that there's really good news on the horizon, and that is, I can't speak for Matt's district, but I know that in Van Cortlandt Park, it looks like we're going to have maybe about 10 more staff people coming in, which is enormous. I mean, our permanent staff is maybe about 20 people, give or take. So to have another 10 people come in is huge. I think that the funding is related to federal funding for COVID relief, and that the neighborhoods like the Bronx that have been particularly impacted by COVID, and of course, Parks Department, like some other city agencies, just really worked through it. We were, you know, sort of the only place of refuge when a lot of other, you know, restaurants and sports places and movie theaters, when everything was closed. So I think and I don't think that Van Cortlandt is alone in getting a sizable contingent of additional staff people. I think that this is going to be citywide, Bronx-wide. So people who are more focused on some of the other smaller parks in your neighborhood are also going to see the same benefit. So I did just kind of want to echo, you know, what Sarah said, and say that this is something that's being rolled out to other places, and also to let everybody know, you know, thank you for your patience through all this. I do think that better days are on the horizon. It's been tough for us, you know, with increased usership, and, you know, we've faced the same thing that everybody else has faced with, you know, people sick, people out, people quarantined, and all the rest of it. But I do think that it's going to be even better soon.
Well, thank you for that bit of good news, Ms. Thayer. Thank you so much for that. Ms. Hudson, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I had a question. I don't know if anyone here would be able to answer. They've been working in Shoelace Park renovating the upper level, and at the entrance at 222nd Street, they have cutouts throughout the park where they have, you know, the path to walk, and then they have grass in the cutouts. And at the entrance on 222nd Street, they put a cutout, and they did not put grass, or they didn't put any pavement, and it's just mud. And especially when it rains, it's just full of mud. And I see that they're continuing to finish the park, because now they're up by 216th, and they're going to go all the way to Gun Hill, but they have not finished that path. And I just want to know, what are they going to do? Because it's a mess.
Well, I think that would be a question for Mr. Duran, and he's not here. But the last time that we spoke, I know that he said that they were still, they had about 20% of the construction to go in that area. And so that would be finished by June. So I think that we can, you know, I'll reach out to him in reference to your comment about the 222nd pathway, right? Correct?
Right, the entrance, right by the entrance, because I know when these people, they pass an area, they don't come back to finish. They just keep going, and they have passed that area. It's right at the entrance of 222nd Street. It's an area that's not paved, and there's no grass. It's just mud.
So basically a dirt entrance. Okay. I will, when I reach out to him, I will definitely put that question to him and get back to you.
Thank you.
If you'd like, you can I will put my email in the chat, and then you can just, or put your email rather in the chat, and I will email you what he had said.
I will. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Ms. Thayer, was your hand up from before, or you had an additional comment?
Hi, am I still on mute or am I unmuted?
You're unmuted now, but your hand
Oh,
and your
okay.
hand is up.
I'm sorry, my hand, I didn't realize that I should do the lowering on that. Yes, it's from
Okay.
before. That's,
All right.
thank you, sorry.
No problem. Ms. Patterson?
Yes, it was nice to meet Miss Thayer. I've seen her name many times, but I've never seen you. Miss Thayer, you said something about the banners. Who is paying for those banners that are going up at Van Cortlandt Park in reference to the trash?
You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute, Miss Thayer.
Thank you, sorry. You think we would all have it down now with all these Zoom meetings about mute, unmute.
Right.
So it's actually New York City that's paying for them, and it's standardized. They're going to be standardized across the city. So it's not the Alliance that's paying for them. You'll see the same banner in other parks soon.
Okay, because we would love to have the banners at Seton Falls Park, but one of the problems is the money. You know, banners cost a lot of money and they get torn down and you have to replace them. So
True.
we want those banners, you know, and
Yep.
we wanted to know if this is a citywide initiative, then all we have to do is go to Community Board 12's Parks Department and ask them for these banners, right?
So it's a citywide initiative. You don't have to pay for them. Your community group doesn't have to pay for them. I think that maybe the parks chair or I could just say to Matt, they were initially rolling it out to sort of barbecue zones, and now they're rolling it out a little bit larger. So I think either the community board or I could just write to Matt and say, hey, you know, can you put this particular park? And you said it's Seton Falls Park, is that right?
Seton Falls.
On the list to be next online to get one of these trash corrals.
Right.
Oh, and the other thing about that I like about the trash corral, somebody else on the call was talking about, you know, hey, I see these trash cans and they're full or they're overflowing, and then it takes 3 days for somebody to get to them and empty them. Well, the nice thing about the trash corrals is you might take, say, 4, 6, 8 garbage cans, put them all together, and then the garbage packer that picks up the garbage only has to go to one stop instead of going to spot
All the
1,
way around.
emptying, spot 2, emptying, spot 3, emptying, you know, and multiply that, you know, a district can sometimes, I don't know how many parks Matt's district has, but, you know, we
12, actually.
there you go. So you multiply however many garbage cans by however many parks, and that's a lot of stops for a garbage packer as opposed to sort of these consolidated areas. But so long story short, it has a couple of benefits in addition to being the high visibility. But I'd be happy to shoot an email to Matt this evening.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thayer, because I'm going to also send him an email. So the more that we send, the better. So that would be great. That would be great. All right. Let me just check on my agenda. Oh, wait. Yes, that Renee, your hand was up from before, so that's fine. And I think we're almost there, people. We're almost there. Yep, we did talk about that. The placement of the signage, since Matt's not here, we're not going to discuss that at the moment because we do need him to be here to make sure that we are all on the same page about the placement of signage. Is there any other comments, questions, concerns that have not been addressed thus far that someone would like to mention at this point? All right. So I think all hearts and minds are content. May I have a motion to adjourn the Parks Committee meeting for the month of April?
Madam
make
Chair,
a
you did a fantastic job. Okay, you gonna do it, Ms. First Vice Chair? Okay, go ahead, go for it.
Yeah, I make a motion that this meeting can come to an end.
Second it, please. Anyone to second it?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. James. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. Stay safe.
So can I make a final comment, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'll make it quick. So I'm very glad to
Can
see.
I stop the recording, or I need the recording still on?
No, I mean it's up to you.
Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.
Okay, so I just want to say to